Another Chernobyl. That's the warning Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan made during a meeting with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelenskyy in Lviv. The talks, which also included UN Chief Antonio Guterres, came as global concerns grew over heavy fighting around Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Located in southern Ukraine, the plant has been under Russian military control since March. In the past several weeks, the area around the facility has come under artillery fire, with both Moscow and Kiev blaming each other for the attacks. UN Chief Guterres said any damage to the plant would be suicide. Earlier this month, he called for the area to be demilitarized, which Moscow has rejected. President Erdogan, on his first visit to Ukraine since Russia launched its attack back in late February, reiterated Türkiye's support for Ukraine's sovereignty. He also said that the three leaders covered the possibility of transforming a recent grain deal into wider peace talks. Since August 1st, dozens of ships have transported more than 600,000 tons of grain out of Ukraine. And for more on what was covered during the meeting in Lviv, joining me now from Bursa, Türkiye, is Ferhat Pirincci. He is a professor of international relations at Uludag University. And from Istanbul, Eugene Chausovsky. He is a senior analyst at Newsline Institute, which is based in Washington, D.C. Gentlemen, welcome to Straight Talk. It's good to have you on the program. So, Eugene, Erdogan has held his first face-to-face meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy since Russia launched its attack on the country back in the late February. So what's the significance of this visit?
Well, I think the visit has a few different items of significance. First of all, it's to follow up on the grain deal that Turkey helped to successfully mediate along with the UN between Russia and Ukraine to make sure that that deal remains in place. Also, there's been some fighting around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant that Turkey is trying to essentially prevent from escalating to a more serious situation and really just lay the groundwork for a broader peace deal or broader ceasefire agreement, although I think we're not quite at that stage just yet.
So, Ferhat, why this visit was important, and as just Eugene mentioned, on top of the agenda was the situation at the nuclear power plant. What are we hearing from there?
Actually, I did not consider this visit as an ordinary one. Yes, it is somehow a kind of demonstration of solidarity with Ukraine and a confirmation of its Turkey's support to its sovereignty and territorial integrity. But in my opinion, it's more than that. First, the time, as you said, it's first face-to-face meeting after the Russian invasion. And the second, the content. I mean, yes, it is after the grain deal and the main agenda is about the grain deal. But as Türkiye and President Erdogan made several attempts to make a common ground, to find a common ground between the warring parties, I think it's a milestone and it's an important turning point after the events. So, yes, there is a nuclear reactor issue and there is a swap or exchange of prisoners. And also beside that, there is an agenda of expanding the grain deal. So all those are, I think, are somehow confidence building steps, because the main problem between the warring parties is lack of trust. And with Turkey's attempts and President Erdogan's efforts, parties just came and assembled together.
So, Eugene, how risky has the nuclear power plant become, and what are the prospects of an agreement or demilitarization of this power plant?
Well, I think the situation is quite risky given what's at stake here. Russia has accused Ukraine of targeting its forces there and, potentially trying to have some kind of accident, while Ukraine has obviously accused Russia of doing similar things. So I think the importance now is for both sides to try to have some kind of at least very limited ceasefire agreement around this nuclear plant. And this is something that both Turkey and the UN have become increasingly involved in trying to broker at this time.
So, Ferhat, President Erdogan also said he'll also talk to Russian President Vladimir Putin about his meeting with Zelenskyy. Could he convince him to withdraw from the nuclear plant?
I think so. He can convince, but the main problem is that how to make a solution. I mean, the withdrawal may not be the issue, but maybe creating the conflict zone or somehow a partial demilitarization of the surrounding area may be the subject. But I think he can convince because it's a risky situation. It's not about only Ukraine or Russia. It's about the region, Paul.
So, Eugene, how this latest visit by President Erdogan and UN Chief Guterres, you think, is viewed by Moscow?
Well, clearly with Erdogan planning to have a follow-up discussion with Putin, and I'm sure there will be some visits from Turkish officials to Russia, this is an important stage. While I don't think that a broader ceasefire is in the immediate offing, this will be laying the groundwork similar to what Turkey did, I think, in the grain deal. It didn't happen overnight. That was a stage-by-stage process, and clearly that's, I think, what Erdogan and Turkey is trying to do in this case as well.
But could the Black Sea grain deal revive the conflict resolution negotiations?
Well, there's been some discussions of expanding that grain deal to other goods, such as metals, and I think that would be a positive signal towards having at least some practical measures, even as the military aspect of the conflict continues. So the more that they can maintain those agreements and expand them, I think the higher the chances are that eventually at some point a ceasefire can be reached.
So Ferhat, has this visit added to Türkiye's role as a neutral mediator between Ukraine and Russia? What's the international perception there?
Actually, there are some criticisms and ongoing discussions on Turkey's approach towards the crisis in Ukraine, and some even started to claim that Turkey is not a reliable ally, particularly some NATO members. But let us remember, even before the Russian invasion, Turkey made it clear that it did not want instability in the region, and it also confirmed its support to Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and also condemned the Russian invasion. However, also Turkey did not participate in the wave of sanctions. Yes, most of the leaders tried to make a deal, at least find a common ground in order to decrease the tension and decrease the humanitarian dimension of the crisis, but no one succeeded. None succeeded.
Yes.
Even they did not succeed at a partial success, but except there's an exception, President Erdogan and Türkiye. And now I think they are starting to understand Turkey's role. I mean, with this visit, Turkey's balanced relations with Ukraine and Russia again showed itself. And from now on, I think there will be a decrease in the criticisms.
Would you agree, Eugene? I mean, what do you make of some Western nations' uneasiness over Turkish closeness to Russia? What are they concerned about?
Well, certainly, I think from the standpoint of a country like the U.S., there's concern over Turkish, military and weapons purchases from Russia, even the energy relationship. As previously mentioned, Turkey did not pass sanctions against Russia. But at the same time, Turkey has played this unique role as the only NATO member country that's even in a position to mediate in this conflict because of its more balanced or at least more complex stance regarding both Russia and Ukraine. So I think that's ultimately, a good thing for the U.S. and for the West, as long as they can manage that relationship effectively.
So, Ferhat, is Turkey likely to face retaliatory steps from the West because of its deepening relations with Russia?
I don't think so, but somehow there is a risk of this. But let us not forget that with Turkey's role and Turkey's efforts, the warring sides came together, and the grain deal is succeeded by Turkey's attempts. So in the near future, there will be some other crises. We are now talking about the nuclear plant, and maybe in a few months we will start to discuss the energy issue and etc. So Turkey's role will enable to decrease the tension and at least somehow find some solutions on the tactical level. Maybe in the midterm and in the long run, Turkey will be the main mediator and facilitator in order to create the interim truce and maybe later permanent truce, and after this, maybe a peace deal.
So, Eugene, according to some figures, Russia seems to have overtaken China as the largest single source of Turkish imports. What's your take on that, and how is that mutual and growing dependency between the two countries playing out?
Well, yes, this is a very important relationship because Turkey is essentially now in between two different camps. You have the US and the EU or NATO countries on one hand, and then you have Russia and China, which have grown increasingly close as a result of this Ukrainian conflict on the other. And so Turkey's role in terms of its economic relationship with both Russia and with the West, I think, is an important indicator over where this conflict is going in a broader economic and even geopolitical sense. So in that sense, it will be very important to watch this moving forward.
So Ferhat, for how long do you think the two leaders would continue to walk the tightrope? And are there any dangers ahead that could derail this well-crafted relationship?
Turkish-Russian relations are not founded with the crisis in Ukraine, and it will not end after the crisis in Ukraine. I mean, there's a fragmented relationship, a different relationship model, which is directly linked to the transformation of the international system. So there are a lot of files which Turkey and Russia are disagree, and there are some which they are agree. So the economic side of the relations, economic dimension of the relations, yes, it's ongoing and it makes some progress. However, there are also several rivalries, including the crisis in Ukraine, in Black Sea, in Caucasia, in Libya, in Africa, and even, of course, in Syria. So it's a fragmented relationship, and I think most of the countries will start to create the relationship, or will take this relationship model as a sample, because they have to. Otherwise, they will have several challenges. They will face several challenges.
All right, gentlemen. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.